Chapter 21 Bibi Dong's scheming and Guang Ling's ability to hit the right spot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, they arrived at Guang Ling's secluded retreat. A powerful, chilling aura surged around, making Hanli and Xiao'er gasp for air. Seeing this, Qingluan quickly created a soul shield, and they could breathe normally again. Hanli swallowed, realizing he'd underestimated the power of a true master. He'd looked down on anyone from Douluo, but this was a whole different level. "Uncle, is Master's breakthrough always this intense?" Hanli asked, his throat dry. He pointed to the churning clouds and the way the overflowing power was tearing things apart. "Well, breakthroughs past level 95 are like this. Your second uncle's wasn't as big as this. It probably has something to do with Guang Ling comprehending certain elements. I wonder what your uncle said." Qingluan considered the ice and light in the air, and answered slowly. "I see." Hanli made a mental note and waited quietly. They were the first to arrive. Fortunately, Guang Ling had ordered everyone to evacuate beforehand. As the aura intensified, more people arrived, the other worshippers. DouluoDalu was not among them. "Why are they here?" The lion turned, indicating three newcomers at the top of the mountain. The other worshippers shrugged, offering no answer or greeting. Hanli followed their gaze, recognizing the leader instantly. The woman was stunning, dressed in a perfect-fitting gold gown covered in hundreds of red, blue, and gold gemstones. A jeweled, nine-curved purple-gold crown rested on her head, and she carried a gem-encrusted scepter. On this sacred mountain, she looked divine. Her fair skin seemed to glow, making one want to worship her, like the first time Hanli saw the angel statue. It had to be the current pope, Bibi Dong. But Hanli remained guarded, not letting his eyes linger. He glanced at the two figures behind her. Guan, the chrysanthemum Douluo, wore a bright red outfit embroidered with gold and silver, and a gem the size of a baby's fist hung on his chest. With his captivating face, it was hard to tell if he was a man or a woman. He smiled and winked at Hanli. Gross, Hanli thought, and quickly turned to the other person, a blurry black figure. Even in the daylight, he couldn't make out any details. The ghost Douluo. Impressive, Hanli thought, looking away. However, as soon as he did, the three of them looked at him and Xiao'er. This was their first time seeing the so-called lucky boy rise to the top and become Guang Ling's disciple. They couldn't hide Guang Ling's actions of mobilizing his family. Guang Ling seems fond of this apprentice. And that soul power probably means he just broke through, right? Level 13 or 14, maybe, Bibi Dong thought, glancing at the boy before losing interest. He was just a kid who had just become a soul master. Just then, Guang Ling's retreat exploded with even greater energy. The room collapsed, and a crystal bow rose into the air, radiating strong ice and light, illuminating the entire spirit hall city. "Ha ha ha, I've broken through to level 97, in an instant, the bow vanished, turning into a blue-white light and returning to the ground. Guang Ling emerged, a triumphant smile on his face. "Congratulations, fifth brother. Alright, knock it off and contain that aura," someone said. "Guang Ling, you're lucky. I wonder when I'll break through," another added. The worshippers congratulated Guang Ling, ignoring his smug grin. They were used to it. The three in the distance approached, as if to offer congratulations as well. The fifth worshipper seems to have grown stronger. "Congratulations," Bibi Dong called out, though her tone lacked warmth. The worshippers exchanged glances, then bowed and said, "Greetings, Pope." Hanli frowned, subtly pulling Xiao'er behind the worshippers, blending in and bowing. Bibi Dong ignored their greetings, turning her gaze to Guang Ling. "Fifth worshipper, as a member of the Spirit Hall, perhaps you could share your breakthrough experience. Elder Ju and Elder Gui have been stuck at level 95 for a while now. Some guidance would strengthen the Spirit Hall." This was Bibi Dong's real reason for bringing them. While she knew it was a long shot, she had to try. That's why she was speaking in the name of the Spirit Hall rather than the Pope. Guang Ling didn't care about her rank. Guang Ling's face flashed with anger. Why should I guide them? Who is she to use the spirit hall to pressure me? Suppressing his rage, he replied calmly, Pope, haven't you broken through level 95? Why not instruct them yourself? Are you unwilling, or afraid they'll join the worship hall? Bibi Dong's expression didn't change, but her grip on the scepter tightened. It wasn't the fear of them joining the worship hall, but Guang Ling's words hit a nerve. She didn't know how. While she had become a peerless Douluo, her path was different. Her strength came from absorbing the soul ring of her second martial soul and forcing a breakthrough. Plus, the Rakshasa God test had smoothed the way. She had no real comprehension of her own, her second martial soul, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor, after devouring Qiang Sunji and accumulating soul rings, had inadvertently met the requirements. She had been too focused on destroying the Qian family and the divine tests to notice. Now, Guang Ling's words trapped her, unable to move forward or backward. The air grew tense. Chapter 22. Do you want my insights? Yes, but you have to pay extra. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the field, Bibi Dong wasn't the only one feeling the heat. The two titled Douluo behind her were equally uncomfortable. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place, unsure what to say or do. It wasn't like they hadn't thought about their own bottlenecks. As Bibi Dong's top lieutenants, they'd been stuck at level 95 for ages, desperate to break through. The thing was, they'd watched Bibi Dong climb the ranks, even helping her acquire some of her spirit rings. Yet, she'd never once mentioned how she had broken through, as if she just didn't need to, and forget about advice. The problem was their leader tended to lose it. They often sensed a dangerous vibe radiating from Bibi Dong. Asking her anything was out of the question, a non-starter. Now, Guang Ling had thrown the issue into the spotlight. What were they supposed to do? Adding to the tension, Han Li, standing behind the crowd, was a mixed bag of emotions. He hadn't expected his teacher's verbal smackdown to be so brutal. He knew Guang Ling was an angel sect loyalist, but this was straight up slapping Bibi Dong across the face. Easy there, teach, Han Li thought. Asterisk that which is bad news. If she wasn't being held back by the trials, she'd find a way to off Guang Ling in a heartbeat. And if Bibi Dong couldn't touch Guang Ling, what was stopping her from targeting him? If Han Li were in her shoes, that's exactly what he'd do, and he figured Bibi Dong was smart enough to see it too. Seeing that Guang Ling was gearing up for another round, Han Li quickly activated his spirit bone ability, urgently messaging his teacher. Over the past few months, he and Qingluan had tested the limits of the ability. As long as Han Li focused on one-way communication and avoided actively seeking a response, even Qingluan struggled to detect it. Anyone weaker wouldn't even notice the exchange. He'd prepped for this moment. Time for Operation Teletubby to shine. Guang Ling sensed Bibi Dong and the title Douluo's unease. Just as he was about to press his advantage, his apprentice's voice popped into his head, throwing him off his game. Teacher, lay off already. You want Bibi Dong to off your prized student. I'm only 6, and you're not alone in this world, you know. Guang Ling froze, snapping his mouth shut. The crowd stared at Guang Ling, surprised. Since when was he so composed? Only Qingluan's eyes flickered, as if she suspected something, giving Han Li a subtle glance. Of course, she wasn't the only one. Bibi Dong, with her divine senses, had picked up on the faint energy flicker between Han Li and Guang Ling. She likely figured out why Guang Ling had suddenly clammed up. Han Li knew Bibi Dong would catch him, but that was the point. He didn't like Bibi Dong and didn't want to be her pawn, but he really didn't want to be a target either. He had to play peacemaker. All he could hope was that Bibi Dong would keep a lid on it, despite the butterfly effect his little intervention caused. In the original story, Bibi Dong had plenty of patience, biding her time. Teacher, Han Li's message continued, she's still the Pope, appointed by the big guys. She's gotta save face. She wants advice for the two elders. Fine, give her some, then make them pay for it. Something vague, something that sounds good but is ultimately useless. Think about it, you get something, you get the gratitude of the title Douluo, and you still show the Pope respect. When they don't break through, it's on them, not you. Actual benefit, they got nothing and will have to grin and bear it. And they will still have to thank you for the opportunity. No harm, no foul, right? Isn't Bibi Dong always trying to make you feel uncomfortable? How do you choose? We get both. Get it? Guang Ling's eyes widened. Why hadn't he thought of that? Hey, this kid takes after me, he thought. He's my apprentice all right, I'll play along. Under the crowd's watchful eyes, Guang Ling straightened his robes, cleared his throat and stepped forward, changing the subject. You want my insights? Not impossible. But as they say, good fences make good neighbors. Even if we are all members of the Spirit Hall, I can't just give away invaluable advice, can I? Several worshippers stared, nodding slowly in agreement. On the other side, Bibi Dong remained expressionless, while the title Douluo nodded eagerly. They were desperate and willing to pay. Guang Ling seemed to be listening to something, an odd expression on his face. After a pause, he looked at the three of them and spoke, You want to hear it? Sure, but I'm not guaranteeing it'll work for you. At this point, everyone's got their own understanding of things. And this is my life's work. I'm not just handing it out. So, it's gonna cost you. The last sentence hung in the air, the crowd gasped. Was that really Guang Ling speaking? Since when was he so greedy? Before anyone could react, Guang Ling continued, Spirit bones. Bibi Dong gripped her scepter tighter, and the title Douluo looked utterly defeated. But then, they heard Guang Ling's next words, like a gasp for air. You probably don't have those, he said, so we'll just have to substitute something else. He glanced at the two of them. 1 million gold spirit coins each, plus some high-grade herbs. Don't tell me you don't have that. If you don't, deal's off. I need to fund my own post-breakthrough training. And you, little chrysanthemum, I want your flower-growing secrets, every last illustration. Remember, everything. Preferably, a sample. With those conditions, would it be too much to ask for a level 97 title Douluo experience in exchange, right? Guang Ling glanced at Bibi Dong, a disarming smile on his face. Of course, but as the 5 offerings, how do you guarantee the authenticity of the insights? Bibi Dong fired back. Guarantee? I can't. I'm worried you'll read it and realize it's useless to you. All I can say is my understanding is true, and I swear it on the honor of the angel god. Guang Ling countered, sizing her up as he spoke, *angel god, Bibi Dong scoffed inwardly. It was proof Guang Ling was dead serious. After all, he was a Qianjia fanatic. She glanced at the crowd, the small fries bowed down in respect, then turned back and thought Guang Ling's transformation is all for him. In this way, her goal was achieved, and she also discovered that Guang Ling was a mad dog. Weakness. Now is not the time to settle accounts. In the future, Qianjia and your apprentice, you will also have to face a choice. Feel the warmth now, so that it will be more painful then. Okay, deal. Bibi Dong stared at Guang Ling, as if waiting for him to speak. Hold on, Your Majesty, Pope. It's only fair to pay with one hand and deliver the goods with the other. I'll write down my thoughts, and they can bring the stuff to me tomorrow. Guang Ling declined immediately. He hadn't even started writing it, how could he give it now? Good. Bibi Dong gave him a long look. She still had her doubts, but she wouldn't push. She had no choice, even if she suspected foul play. If she hesitated, it would be a blow to the title Douluo. She might as well accept it, the deal done, she had no desire to linger. She turned and left with the 2 title Douluo in tow, thanks for the reward from Jiuhua High Boss, Ors. Thanks to 37 Degrees Mood, Wen Shao, Qingfeng for smoking half of my cigarette, book friend 20240128085900330, book friend 20220218191624747, 5 big guys for their monthly support, thank you very much. Please read the new book that I would like to ask readers to please use your little hands and turn to the end. It is very important to follow up during the new book period. Thank you very much. Free recommendation votes are also available, thank you from the author. Below are books written by friends of the author. If you are interested, you can read them. Chapter 23. Is this the ability of a top AD to seize opportunities? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wuhuan City, Dongfeng Mountain, Guang Ling's retreat, the strange vibe hung in the air even after the three figures were gone. So, old five, Xiongshi said, scratching his head. Is changing personalities during a retreat a thing? You, Guang Ling, making a deal with Bibi Dong. It feels like a dream. Maybe I just need some sleep. Guang Ling gave Xiongshi a look of utter contempt. You don't know anything. You'll get it later. Want a piece of my wisdom? I can make a copy for you. But when I'm sharing it with everyone, you can't chime in. Deal? But even though Xiongshi didn't know what Guang Ling was up to, he wasn't dumb. Seeing Guang Ling's sly expression, he knew it was a trap, and considering Guang Ling was now stronger than him, he just huffed, turned away, and shut his mouth. Jean, you didn't know Guang Ling's plan either, but the situation wasn't all bad. He glanced at Guang Ling, said, don't stir up too much trouble, and left. The others were itching to hear Guang Ling's lecture, but looking at the beat-up house and the two kids, and seeing that Jean Yu had already left, they knew their chance was gone for the night. They said their goodbyes and headed out. Soon, only the usual foursome remained. Guang Ling glanced back at the battered house, now even more wrecked after his breakthrough, then looked at Qinghuan. He'd initially planned to celebrate with drinks at his place. But then he remembered he needed to cook up a story and talk it over with his apprentice, so it made more sense to go straight there. It was only a short walk anyway. He turned to Qinghuan. Let's go to Xiaoli's place. You too. Your input would be great. Qinghuan had anticipated this. Smiling, he replied, okay, I'll have the wine and food sent over. You go on ahead. Great, hurry it up. With that, Guang Ling didn't wait for a response. He grinned, scooped up the two kids, and headed for the nearby mansion. Qinghuan just sighed. Guang Ling's always been like that. He turned and walked towards his own place. A gust of wind later, Hanli and Xiu'er were standing in the courtyard. They'd barely gotten their bearings when Guang Ling's voice boomed. How's the training going? You two weren't slacking off while your master was in seclusion, were you? Thinking back to his own childhood training, Guang Ling asked suspiciously, then caught Hanli giving him a look that said, are you serious? He took a closer look at the two kids. He first checked out Xiu'er. Yep, she must have gotten her spirit ring. Then he scrutinized his apprentice and saw that his aura was still a bit unstable. Must have just broken through. Level 14, he asked tentatively. He hadn't dealt with new spirit masters in a while. The spirit power fluctuation was weak. He couldn't be sure. Me, Hanli, a genius, level 15. Broke through a minute before you did. Level 15. Guang Ling could hardly believe it. He'd been in seclusion, but he knew the approximate time frame. It had only been a little over 3 months. He'd jumped 3 levels. Even though leveling up is easy at the Spirit Master stage, and Hanli was close to level 13 after absorbing the external spirit bone, this was incredible. It shattered his previous beliefs. It's thanks to the training schedule you set, teacher. I even had a set sleeping time, Hanli said matter-of-factly. Ah, you really stuck to that schedule for 3 months. Guang Ling suddenly realized something. He remembered the manual. Something wrong. Hanli immediately picked up on Guang Ling's words and stared at his face. Not a problem, just didn't expect you to stick with it that long. I forgot to tell you and those other kids. That was only a 2-week plan. Cut it in half after you've stuck to it. After all, you're still growing, and that much strain isn't good. Guang Ling looked a bit embarrassed. It was his mistake. Oh. Hanli replied expressionlessly. No wonder the other kids couldn't keep up with it if they were actually 6 years old. That explained it. Hey, don't be mad. You kept at it and hit level 15. Proves there's nothing wrong with the teacher's plan. Guang Ling crouched down with a smile and patted his head. It's fine. I just hurt when I slept. Although Han Li complained, he wasn't really upset. It had worked. He was just mentally tired, but he could handle it. Alright, now that I'm out of seclusion, you don't have to follow that anymore. I'll let you rest for a bit. Of course, the training time isn't getting cut. Guang Ling thought for a moment and spoke again, planning for the future. Yes. Han Li also let out a sigh of relief. He could have kept it up for a while. His body was fine. With the medicine and the healing spirit masters, he didn't have any underlying injuries, he really needed to relax. He'd been training mechanically for 3 months, driven by the belief that if other kids could do it, he could too, or he'd end up eating at the same table with Yu Xiaojiang. It turned out it was all a misunderstanding. Now he could finally catch a break. Guang Ling was happy with Han Li's progress. As long as he didn't slack off, everything else was fine. Just then, Qingluan arrived with a group of servants carrying wine and food. Perfect timing. Double the celebration. It's going to be big, Guang Ling laughed. Triple the celebration. I'll be making a killing tomorrow, Han Li reminded him. Huh, you're right. Triple celebration. Time to party. Guang Ling paused for a moment, then smiled even wider. After some merrymaking, Xiu'er excused herself and went back to her room. Her training wasn't done yet, and the young master was already level 15. She couldn't fall too far behind. It wasn't until 11 o'clock that Guang Ling's energy flagged. Han Li hadn't said much, just quietly listening to the two men's conversations and pouring wine. Even so, he'd learned a lot and heard some interesting stories. After all, these were two titled Douluos. Their experience was unmatched. Then, out of nowhere, he heard Guang Ling turn the topic to him. By the way, Shaoli, I get the gold soul coins and medicine, but why did you send a voice message to me and Zhu Douluo asking for his plant illustrations? Do you really like that stuff? Guang Ling asked curiously. He didn't know the kid had that hobby. Here it comes, Han Li thought. This is what happens when you're around top-tier experts. They're not only great at spotting weaknesses but also keen on identifying important things. Even though it's jokingly called the Romance Continent, Han Li understood that most people in this world aren't fools. It's just that the culture leads them to be relatively pure in some ways, especially the strongest. It would be a mistake to assume they couldn't sense anything. To be honest, Master, I'm really interested. Not just plants, but medical skills too. I'm planning on studying them in my spare time, Han Li said truthfully. Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing that, Guang Ling and Qingluan didn't bat an eye. Han Li had made it clear he'd only do research after practice, calling it a hobby. They weren't against that. Alright, fine. As long as it doesn't mess with your training, do whatever you want. But man, you've got an eye for trouble. Little Chrysanthemum is super protective of his plants. This favor is practically asking for his firstborn. Guang Ling chuckled, pouring himself another glass of wine. So, Master, time to write up those insights for him, Han Li prompted. Oh, yeah, no problem. I'll get right on it. I'll lay it all out, whether he gets it or not is on him. Guang Ling seemed to get an idea, and he and Han Li exchanged a look. A knowing grin spread across both their faces. Qingluan, watching from the side, couldn't shake the feeling their smiles were a bit devious. He'd known them for less time, but they were always oddly in sync when it came to this kind of thing. He chalked it up to some master-disciple connection, a fate thing, and so, as Qingluan looked on, the two pulled out a book and started scribbling away, muttering to themselves. At first, Qingluan was surprised Guang Ling was actually writing down his spiritual insights. But after reading for a while, his head in his hands, He glanced at the sky in exasperation. Guang Ling was detailed, all right. He started from the Soul Master stage, laying out every step so perfectly, even Qin Luan couldn't find fault. It wasn't until the level 95 stuff that his real intentions came to light. He wrote something, sure. He wrote about his actual experiences because what he wrote was practically Wuhuan Palace insider info, stuff even titled Douluo were clear to read. But when he got to anything specific, he started speaking in riddles. Like, breaking through to level 96 is actually easy. After hitting 95, just start developing the unique traits of your martial soul. Simple. Or, maybe this was actually spelled out in the insider info. Those who get it, get it. And those who don't, well, too bad, so sad. It's all about talent, baby. If you don't understand, me explaining it won't help. Get it? Of course, Guang Ling wasn't just writing gibberish. He had some conscience, but not much. He made sure to add a note: if you've got twin martial souls, try adding a soul ring to the second one. Might give you a shot at breaking through. Helpful, right? Was Guang Ling telling the truth? Technically, yes. But not the whole truth. He'd been in the same boat before, reading the insider info and breaking through to 96. It was after that he got stuck. He just left out the breakthroughs to level 97, and whatever the other worshippers had told him. After all, Bibi Dong had asked for guidance to break through Ju Gui to level 96, and wanted Guang Ling's insights, not other people's. He wasn't cleared to share that. He wasn't lying, not technically. Angel God could vouch for him, and he'd swear it in person tomorrow. After finishing, Guang Ling reread everything to make sure the only useful info was the original insider stuff. He was pleased with himself. Ju Gui had read that stuff 1,000,000 times. If that's what finally got him over the hump, Guang Ling would eat his hat. After pondering a bit, he turned to Han Li and asked if he wanted to add anything. Han Li thought for a second and decided to leave a breadcrumb trail, for future opportunities. After all, they were all Wuhuan Palace, maybe they could team up sometime, so, after a moment's hesitation, he took the booklet and added a note at the end. The main reason you two haven't broken through to level 96 is that you're on the wrong path. You've exhausted your potential prematurely. The Qi Rong Tianju and the ghostly martial spirit aren't power or agility types. Forcing your way to Super Douluo is tough. You need to find the right rare materials to strengthen your origins, or empower your souls. That's the way. Even if you suddenly grasp the secrets of your martial souls, a forced breakthrough could have consequences. Keep that in mind. After reading it, Guang Ling handed the booklet to Qin Luan. They both stared at Han Li's note for a long time, exchanging strange looks before sighing in unison. You're one weird kid. How are you so insightful at 6 years old? Sometimes I want to crack your head open and see what's inside. Maybe it's the angel's blessing, Han Li answered casually, not really caring about their bewilderment. He was working this angle, so naturally, he wouldn't mind leaning in a little more. Besides, what he was showing was a way of thinking. As long as Qiandooliu didn't have Alzheimer's, he'd be safe, plus, he had plans in the works. If he didn't act differently from ordinary kids, how could he expect the big shots to support him? So, he wasn't going to play dumb. As long as he stuck with the enshrinement hall, someone would clear the way for him. Right? Blessed by angels and gods, Guang Ling and Qin Luan exchanged even stranger looks. They didn't know much, but they knew their boss's boss. And they had a senior right here. If they remembered correctly, Han Li hadn't even reacted when he'd walked past the angel statue. He couldn't have picked a worse excuse. If the chief priest heard that, he'd be in for a beating. Well, the last guy to talk nonsense got a beatdown from Qian Daolu, so at least the master-disciple tradition remained alive. Seeing it was late, the two titled Douluo didn't linger. They took Han Li back to his room, gave him the day off, and then left. He was beat. As soon as he got back to his room, Han Li skipped meditation and crashed. Before long, the quiet room was filled with his rhythmic breathing. The night passed without incident. Xiu'er woke him at 9 the next morning. After a quick wash, he rushed over to Qing Luan's place. 10 o'clock was the agreed-upon time for the exchange, and he couldn't be late. Most importantly, he had to get the info on the immortal grass. He wouldn't let his teacher get swindled by Douluo. He wouldn't budge on this. Only that mattered. Chapter 25, Transaction and Trap Digging. Hanli finds his conscience. You are listening at novelfull.audio. They lived close by, so Hanli arrived quickly. The servants didn't stop him. He was a familiar face. Even though he was Guang Ling's disciple, he'd been around a lot lately, and it was clear he was favored. Some might even consider him an apprentice. Hanli hurried inside and found Zhu Gui and the other two Douluo already there. With Bibi Dong absent, the atmosphere was relaxed. Gui Mei remained quiet, but the others were chatting amiably, mostly thanks to Yu Guan's efforts to lighten the mood. After all, the Heng and Ha had once served Qiang Sunji. While the two worshippers weren't fans of Qiang Sunji, they'd had dealings with him. Their relationship only soured after joining Bibi Dong's side. Xiao Li's here. Have a seat, Qing Luan said with a smile, seeing Hanli still catching his breath. He poured Hanli a cup of tea. Hanli didn't hesitate. He gulped down the tea and handed back the cup. Master, uncle, greetings to Zhu Douluo and Gui Douluo. After composing himself, Hanli bowed to the four Douluo. Gui Mei simply nodded in response, while Yu Guan gave Hanli an appraising look, covered his mouth, and chuckled. So this is the fifth worshipper's disciple. Quite the handsome young man. I bet he'll be a pillar of the spirit hall someday. Han Li's mouth twitched. He actually had a soft spot for Zhu and Gui. They were consistently present and undeniably loyal throughout the whole story, and their abilities were useful. It was a shame they backed the wrong person, leading to such a miserable end. He understood Yu Guan's theatrics, but he wasn't used to it yet. Zhu Douluo, you're too kind, Han Li replied modestly. I'm just fortunate that my master and uncle value me. I'll be happy as long as I can contribute to the spirit hall. Seeing them about to launch into more formal pleasantries, Guang Ling interjected, now that Xiao Li's here, let's get to the exchange. Xiao. Yu Guan, just give your plants, flowers, and illustrations to Xiao Li. Zhu Douluo was surprised. He hadn't realized Guang Ling wanted them for his apprentice. Is he interested in these? He wondered. Well, that's better than Guang Ling getting them. Some of these plants were hard to find, and I don't want him ruining them. Yu Guan suddenly felt more favorably towards Han Li. He's a flower lover too. I'll give him a cultivation guide later. I don't want him messing it up. Maybe we can bond over this and find someone who is like-minded that can communicate with me in the future. It'll be much more pleasant chatting with this kid than that old Coot Dugu Bo Star. Alright, let's trade, Yu Guan said. He glanced at Gui Mei for confirmation, then began pulling things from his storage ring. As he gently placed the flower pots on the ground, he told Han Li their names, functions, effects, and ideal growing conditions, taking his time to introduce each of them. Han Li, genuinely interested, listened attentively. Soon, the hall was filled with flowers, creating a fragrant sea of blossoms. Seeing this, Han Li quickly activated his wristband, storing everything away. Noticing Yu Guan's worried expression, he reassured him, my wristband can store living things, senior. Don't worry. Yu Guan sighed in relief and resumed the process, repeating it 4 times until all the plants were transferred. Still reluctant to part with them, he glanced longingly at Han Li's wristband before turning towards the manual beside Guang Ling. Stealing his resolve, with a flick of his wrist, 2 booklets appeared. All the plant information I've collected is in here, he said seriously. The other one is my personal cultivation guide. I hope you'll take good care of them. Okay, I will, Han Li said, surprised, taking the books carefully. He didn't plan to destroy them. He was going to have someone build a garden to take care of these plants. Zhu Douluo's manual would be a big help. Seeing Han Li's serious acceptance, Yu Guan felt better. Resisting the urge to stay, he turned to Guang Ling to deliver the herbs and gold soul coins. Han Li didn't join them. He took the opportunity to flip through the detailed plant illustrations. His eyes lit up as soon as he opened it. Douluo had delivered. He couldn't give away ancient texts, but had clearly put a lot of work into this. The first page was a vivid, detailed, and colored rendering of Douluo's own martial soul. It was obvious that he was afraid of making mistakes. Hanli eagerly turned the pages. Sure enough, there were notes on all the immortal herbs he knew, and even more that he didn't, nearly 30 in total. Some lacked complete information or pictures, despite Yu Guan's research, but that was enough for Hanli. Stowing the book safely in his wristband, Hanli glanced at Yu Guan and Gui Mei, still trading with Guang Ling, feeling a twinge of guilt for getting such a great deal. Still, this was his only option, especially since they now worked for Bibi Dong, and he hadn't lied. After completing the markings, he confirmed the situation with his master and uncle. They really had no potential to advance further. Reaching level 95 was a lucky break for the two who took the wrong path. It had been Qian Daoliu's verdict, otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed Qian Xuanji's men to join Bibi Dong unopposed. Zhu Gui needed to find something to compensate for their potential as Hanli marked them, or they could only find a high-year soul bone that was extremely suitable for their martial spirits to support them, and it had to be at least 50,000 years old. However, after breaking through with the help of soul bones, they would never be able to move forward in this life. Hanli considered Bibi Dong's attitude towards them. If they stayed with her, they might not even get a 30,000-year soul bone. It would be easier to get a perfectly suited 50,000-year one. Okay, I'll have Master tell them about the soul bones, he thought. No need to put that in the book. I wonder if they'll tell Bibi Dong, that way, while he wouldn't be enlightening them, he wouldn't be offending them either. Exchanging some unused resources was fair enough. The method was available to them, and if they couldn't do it, that wasn't his fault. Let them and Bibi Dong deal with it. Hanli happily told his master about the soul bones, also mentioning the possible consequences to Guang Ling. Guang Ling immediately agreed, even looking more warmly at the two unlucky guys. Zhu Gui, if you can make Bibi Dong miserable, then you're my friends. Guang Ling thought to himself. Chapter 26, The Gratitude and Sorrow of the Two Generals Heng and Ha, and the Next Step of Planning. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The deal went smoother than Zhu Gui and Guang Ling expected. Guang Ling kept his word, handing the book to Yu Guan right then and there, swearing it was legit. Yu Guan and Gui Mei, eager to dive in, were about to bolt, hoping the book held the key to their breakthrough. But Guang Ling stopped them. Might want to take a peek here first, Guang Ling said, lounging back in his chair with a sly grin. Of course, you could just leave. Your call. Yu Guan paused, glancing at the black-robed figure, who considered for a moment, then nodded, agreeing with Guang Ling. So, Yu Guan turned back and sat down, and he and Gui Mei started flipping through the book. Qingguan, sensing something was off, wanted to ask Guang Ling why he'd changed the terms, but a quick wink from Guang Ling silenced him. The hall fell silent, save for the rustling of pages. At first, they were all concentration, but as they read, their expressions soured. The book was full of stuff they already knew. They started flipping pages faster and faster, until it was just useless drivel. Their grips tightened on the book, and their breaths grew ragged. Relax, Guang Ling said. Keep reading. You'll thank me later. They took a deep breath, regained control, and flipped to the end, their eyes glued to the highlighted section. After a moment, their breathing calmed, replaced by bitter smiles. They finally understood Guang Ling's game. Thank you, Senior Guang Ling, for the advice. Looks like we're out of luck. Yu Guan stood and bowed, looking dejected. The ghost also bowed, silent, but the swirling black mist around his robes betrayed his inner turmoil. No need to thank me. It was a deal. Staying at level 95 isn't the worst thing. Maybe you'll stumble on some treasure to boost your potential, Guang Ling said, unconvincingly. Then, his tone shifted. But if you're really set on breaking through, it's not impossible, just maybe not something you'd want to live with. Yu Guan and Gui Mei, who had resigned themselves to their fate, perked up, staring at Guang Ling. Then, a bitter smile returned to their faces. "Senior, we've got nothing left to trade." "Trade? Nah. Just consider this a freebie, so you don't think I was hustling you," Guang Ling said, sitting up straight, a smirk playing on his lips. "We wouldn't dare," they said in unison. "See? You know what's up." Guang Ling waved a hand, stopping their apologies. "For you guys with fusion skills, knowledge isn't the problem. Breaking through 96th isn't that hard. You lack potential. Find a high-level soul bone that's a perfect match for your martial soul, and you'll breeze through it. Minimum of 50,000 years, the higher the better. But breaking through that way? You're capped for life. Get it now? Can you live with it?" Guang Ling spread his hands, leaned back, closed his eyes, and tuned them out. Yueguan and Guimei stood there, faces cycling through emotions. Finally, without a word, they bowed deeply to Guang Ling and left in silence. After a long pause, two sighs echoed in the hall. Guang Ling opened his eyes and glanced at Qin Wan and Han Li, who had emerged from behind a pillar, as if he didn't get what they were sighing about. "You too, scheming against people and still wanting them to thank you? That's really—" Qin Wan trailed off, but Guang Ling and Han Li understood. "So, my dear disciple, what's your sigh about?" Guang Ling asked Han Li, who was pretending to be serious. "I just feel for those two. Two hardworking super Douluo, level 95 with fusion skills, and they don't even have the guts to ask Bibi Dong for a couple of decent soul bones. Pathetic, right?" Han Li said. Qinghuan and Guangling were taken aback. After a moment, they realized he had a point, and a touch of pity crept into their eyes. After chatting with his mentor and uncle, Han Li took off, heading happily toward his place, clutching a shiny new gold card worth 1,000,000 gold soul coins. He needed to deal with those plants. They might not be useful to him just yet, but he promised Ju Douluo, and he didn't mind having a garden. He'd find something for Xiao'er to do, keep her from hanging out with the maids and getting any weird ideas. Back at his place, he called Xiao'er and hauled out the plants, along with the cultivation manual Ju Douluo gave him. Xiao'er jumped at the chance to help. Han Li just shook his head and let her at it. Back in his room, after telling the maid not to bug him, Han Li sat at his desk, pulled out the plant atlas, and started thinking. The past 3 months of intense training hadn't left him time to plan. Now that things were easing up, he needed to start putting his ideas into action. No rush to grab the fairy grass. Based on Yu Guan's record, you needed to hit a certain level before it was safe. With his current strength and constitution, even if he snagged it, he probably couldn't just down it, not in this world where soul skills were everything. And he wasn't about to hand it over to someone else, no way. Han Li wasn't a saint, and he wasn't looking to make enemies. He and Guang Ling were cool now, but not that cool. He'd stick to his original plan for now. If he had to, he wouldn't mind taking one for the team and getting married. The snake girl Duguian was originally at the top of his list, but he didn't know if the universe would help him out in the Find a Mom department, but that was for later. For now, he needed to figure out how to roll out his ideas, and how to make it sound plausible. Han Li ran through every possibility, shooting down most of them. After about an hour, a smile finally touched his lips. This might work. Chapter 27. My good son is still trying hard and the troubles of happiness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Li's plans were on hold for the moment. Now that he finally had some time off, he first checked on Xiao'er. Seeing she had already gotten the ball rolling with the help of the mansion staff, he promptly called in members of the extended family to temporarily look after her plants. After lunch, he told Guang Ling, and together with Xiao'er and a few attendants, he headed down the mountain for his first real visit to Wuhuan City. The last time, Guang Ling had led him on a quick tour, mainly to brief him on the Wuhuan Palace situation. Han Li hadn't been in the mood to pay attention to anything else then. Now, he wanted to see the city for himself and get a feel for it. This was his favorite way to unwind back in his old life. Whenever he was bored, he'd just wander around and soak in the atmosphere. Of course, things were different now. With money in his pocket, he was a bit more adventurous. Most of the residents were soul masters, and even though many weren't high level, they seemed happy and their quality of life looked pretty good. Even the non-soul masters were mostly family members. They knew the basics and weren't afraid of soul masters like ordinary people, so they wouldn't give Shower strange looks because of her ears. Overall, the vibe was great. All afternoon, the attendants led the way, filling them in on the details, and he and Shower did some shopping. Luckily, they both had storage space, so they didn't have to lug around a bunch of bags. Hanli was also really feeling the power of the gold soul coin. They played until dinner time, when the attendants reminded him it was time to head back up the mountain. The family's chef and the food department's soul master had prepared a special meal, so eating out could wait. After dinner and a medicinal bath, Hanli sent Shower back to her training, then locked himself in his room. He didn't start practicing right away. Instead, he pulled out two things from his storage wristband with a curious look, a gold soul coin and a dark brown, gummy blob. He'd picked up the gold soul coin while shopping that afternoon. Well, picked it up literally. He was just walking along when a gold soul coin rolled right to his feet. The dark brown blob was the whale gelatin he had planned to eventually sell off. He'd spotted it tucked away in a corner of a luxury store. Why a luxury store instead of a pharmacy or auction house? Because at the time, whale gelatin was still mainly used as an aphrodisiac. This particular piece of 1,000-year-old whale glue was a little past its prime. The merchants claimed it had been weathered, so they kept it on display as a sample, afraid of getting into trouble if they sold it. When Hanli had asked to buy it, the store even gave him a discount, letting him have it for only 1,000 gold soul coins. Of course, the store had thoughtfully explained the whole situation and offered to exchange it for a fresher, though less valuable, piece. Hanli had declined, enduring looks that someone his age shouldn't have to. After all, a 6 or 7-year-old kid insisting on buying this stuff was a bit odd. As a result, the attendants and Shower had given him some strange looks the rest of the time, but Hanli was no pushover. He was the same guy who'd shamelessly insisted on a relationship with Guang Ling after waking up. He didn't care about a few odd looks. He'd insisted on buying it, promising he wouldn't cause any trouble. Of course, Shower's face stayed flushed for the rest of their shopping trip, which was the price he paid. A gold soul coin and 10,000 years whale glue, delivered right to my doorstep. How thoughtful, Hanli muttered. He played with the two items a bit more, then tossed them back into his wristband and settled down to cultivate. The night passed silently. Early the next morning, Hanli woke up on schedule. Even though he'd practiced late the night before, it didn't affect his sleep. After 3 months of hardcore training, he was used to it. Falling into a deep sleep was practically as easy as using a soul skill. After a quick wash, he headed straight to the training grounds. Seeing that Guang Ling hadn't arrived yet, he started his regular exercises. After finishing a set, he turned around and saw the feather light on the ground. He'd arrived. "Kid, you can actually sense me now." "Impressive," Guang Ling said, surprised. He hadn't emitted any soul power during his approach. "Teacher, have you forgotten? I have this. It helps me sense my surroundings. My mental power didn't detect you, but the changes in airflow and temperature caused by your flight and landing were clearly relayed to me." Hanli pointed to his head, and 2 tentacles popped out, shaking back and forth. "That external soul bone is something else. Once you reach a higher level, no one will be able to sneak up on you," Guang Ling said, envious. As a long-range attacker, he'd love to have similar abilities. "Thanks to you for helping me choose the soul beast, teacher. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten such a useful ability," Hanli replied with a smile. "All right, you little flatterer." Guang Ling laughed, clearly pleased. Then, he turned serious. "All right, let's start training. Show me what you know about basic archery. Let's see what they've been teaching you." Hanli's smile disappeared, and the ice fire bow instantly appeared in his left hand. He straightened his back, turned, and the bowstring and arrow condensed simultaneously. He raised his hand and fired without even looking. */ swish star. the sound of the arrow slicing through the air echoed as a target in the distance exploded in a shower of flaming, frosty fragments. Guang Ling raised an eyebrow, then frowned. Well, the archery's not bad, but it looks like there are still some issues. Han Li nodded. He'd been practicing for 3 months, so he knew his weaknesses. I can't control the elemental power very well yet. The accuracy is decent, but the arrows are all over the place. The lethality is high, but the precision suffers. Guang Ling nodded in satisfaction and asked, have you tried extracting the elements and condensing them into arrows? Han Li nodded and demonstrated, firing 2 arrows, each made of a single element. While they weren't as powerful as the fused arrows, they still left traces of large-scale elemental attacks around the target. The ice arrows were better, but the fire arrows were even less controlled. It's okay within my mental control range, but beyond that, I can't control it very well. If it's a fight between equals, it's manageable. But in a competition, I'm afraid I can't hold back at all, Han Li concluded. Have you tried using ordinary arrows without elements? Guang Ling asked. I've tried it, but it doesn't work. 1. They're too slow to form and useless in combat. 2. They get infected by the martial soul and can't handle the power. They explode as soon as they leave my mental control range, Han Li said, shaking his head. Then we'll just have to wait for you to improve your control and mental strength, Guang Ling said with a sigh. Han Li's ice and fire bow was proving to be more powerful than his own martial soul. Well, guess that's all we can do. Han Li was also a little troubled, but in a good way. The side effects he'd worried about were starting to show, proving his strength. As for sparring, he just meant he wouldn't spar with his peers for now. Besides, wasn't sparring with someone stronger than him also sparring? Chapter 28 Preparations before the Showdown. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the training area, Guang Ling immediately zeroed in on some subtle flaws in Han Li's movements. He then tweaked the shooting difficulty, keeping an eye on Han Li's fundamental skills from every angle. Not bad, the fundamentals are solid. Shows you haven't been slacking off these last 3 months. Guang Ling nodded, pleased. Han Li was picking things up way faster than he'd expected. Of course, they both knew the main reason for this was Han Li's mental strength, far greater than most, and even stronger than Guang Ling's had been back in the day. But that was Han Li's talent, his opportunity. He had to leverage that advantage, not ignore it to be just like everyone else. Like Tang Hao would say, it'd be plain dumb to try and forge a legendary weapon from cheap scrap metal. You gotta know what's important. Your mental power's a big help in mastering the basics, but don't rely on it too much, kid. Try using your eyes more, and your gut, your intuition. It might be a bit early to tell you this, but a good archer needs intuition. Sometimes it's more valuable than anything else. Now, I can't teach you that part. That's all on you. Maybe one day you'll draw back your bow and just know. I've only felt that twice myself. Guang Ling said, his expression serious, tinged with nostalgia. Got it, teacher, I'll keep that in mind. Han Li nodded thoughtfully. He'd heard similar stories before. Some snipers swore they could feel the shot, and it was more accurate than careful aiming. But that wasn't relevant to him right now. He was only 3 months in, still building the foundation. That kind of instinct came from experience in battle. Best not to get ahead of himself. After that, Guang Ling integrated combat tactics into his training sessions, which earned Han Li's respect. Having a top-tier expert break down their experience and spoon-feed it to you was way faster than just reading about it in a book and trying to figure it out yourself. Guang Ling was definitely happy with Han Li's progress. He was never the patient type to begin with, and seeing his student pick things up so quickly, making leaps and bounds, gave him the satisfaction of being a great mentor, and as he taught, Guang Ling also kept refining his combat and theoretical systems. Han Li contributed fresh ideas, some of which Guang Ling thought were too underhanded, but they added to his arsenal of tactics, sparking new trains of thought, which pleased him. He figured, if he had some prep time, he could hold his own in a 3-on-3 fight against opponents of equal level. Maybe not win, but a successful sneak attack. He'd never lose. Especially against those Earth-type martial spirits, like the Clear Sky Hammer, or so Guang Ling thought. Plus, Guang Ling and Qin had been working on the 2 sets of exercises Han Li brought over. The modifications weren't huge, but the movements were sharper, more martial arts focused. They weren't ready for combat yet, but with the added soul power circulation, they packed a serious punch in a brawl. First-hand experience showed they were stronger and more well-rounded than the body training techniques they'd used before. They couldn't decide which set was better. One was good for beginners, the other more advanced. All were satisfied, and Guang Ling and Qin said they'd keep at it, hoping to develop even better physical training methods. Han Li, of course, agreed. 2 months flew by. Han Li broke through to level 16, making Guang Ling even happier. This was the power of a great teacher. Han Li was leveling up as fast as that psycho, Bibi Dong. After that, Guang Ling stopped training him daily, checking in only once a week or so to spar with his student and correct minor mistakes. Meanwhile, his family members continued to diligently assist Han Li in his training. Han Li was finally free from the intense training he'd been doing to shore up his fundamentals. Now, besides the basics, he had time to start on his extracurricular development. And cultural classes had been optimized, less required courses and more independent reading with regular assessments. He felt more relaxed, and it made his future plans easier to manage. In his study, Han Li set aside his book, stretched, and looked at the data he'd written down. A small smile played on his lips. He was finally done. Glancing at the stacks of books around him, he shook his head. He usually enjoyed reading, but when it became work, sifting through books for specific data, it felt like a chore. Even if he wasn't a real kid, it gave him a headache. Luckily, he'd persevered, and with the data he now had on paper, his theory was solid enough. He'd been researching whale gum, compiling data from historical records and drawing conclusions. There was no specific record saying whale gum strengthened the physical body, but based on what happened after people used it, plus a few educated guesses, Han Li had enough. Combined with his martial soul development theory and sure success story, even just a hunch was enough to take this seriously. As for whether he'd be helping the enemy, he wasn't stupid. He'd talk to Guang Ling first, get his hands on the oldest and easiest to obtain whale gum, then report it. Bibi Dong. DouluoDalu would have to tell her first. And even if he did, she'd lose the advantage. The older stuff Han Li collected would be good enough for her so-called golden generation. She had so many underlings, she couldn't give it to everyone. And she wasn't dumb, she'd probably try to keep the news quiet. Get a head start and stay ahead. As long as Han Li got the biggest benefit and the fastest development, it was all worth it. After sitting at his desk for a while, thinking about what he'd say, Han Li left the study and headed for his teacher's mansion. He knew Guang Ling would be there today, so he could just go straight to the door. Sure enough, Han Li found Guang Ling in the pavilion, enjoying a drink. Qin was there too, but that didn't matter. He planned to tell him anyway. Hey, kid, what brings you here? All done with training for the day. Guang Ling turned and saw his usually disciplined student at his doorstep. Usually, Han Li would be reading. Yep, all done. If not, I'll make up for it later, don't worry, master. Han Li smiled, looked around to make sure no one else was there, then pulled a piece of paper out of his wristband, watching as both men grew curious. Master, uncle, I think I found a big secret in the books. Something that'll shake up the Soul Master world. Interested in hearing about it, Han Li waved the paper in his hand, his face innocent. Chapter 29. The best way to make money is to share it with others. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huh? What's the kid cooked up this time? Guang Ling slammed his wine glass down and rushed over to Han Li, asking nervously. After the Shior incident, the high priest specifically told him to keep an eye on Han Li, making sure he focused on training and didn't get sidetracked with any more weird projects. It wasn't just about the potential danger, it was also about wasting valuable training time. Guang Ling kept that to himself, though, because Han Li would have ripped into DouluoDalu. He understood the logic, but agreeing to let Qian Renxue go undercover during her prime was still a terrible idea, seeing them both staring at him, Han Li smiled, held out the paper, and casually grabbed a stool. He waited for them to finish reading. Instead of questions, he got two strange stares. Huh? Han Li frowned. Was there something wrong with the data? Impossible. He double-checked it, and it was perfect. Then Guang Ling said, with a hint of pity, Li, I know you're mature for your age, but you're still young. It's normal to not be, up to the task. That stuff's complicated, and you can't just jump in head first. I'll take this report and give it to Master Golden Crocodile. He's really into this kind of thing. You'll understand better in a couple of years. Don't sweat it. It's not something you need to worry about yet. While Guang Ling offered comfort, he casually slipped the paper into his storage space. That was all Han Li needed to hear. His face fell. He glared at the young-looking old man. Thanks for the concern. You're a real pal, Master. You're welcome. My bad. I should have arranged for someone to help you out. You can head back, and I'll get something set up. Guang Ling waved his hand dismissively, sounding cheerful. No, I need that paper back. I promised my uncle I'd tell you to chill out. Han Li was furious. He'd let his guard down, spent hours on the data, and now it was being treated like a snake oil cure. If Guang Ling wasn't so much stronger, he'd kick him in the shins. Seeing that he was genuinely angry, Guang Ling realized he might have jumped to the wrong conclusion. He quickly retrieved the paper from his belt, skipped the introductory stuff, and went straight to the conclusion. There, marked specifically, was the statement. Therefore, based on the above data and records, I believe that, in addition to its aphrodisiac properties, whale gum can also enhance a soul master's physical strength to a degree. Especially during early development, sufficient or high-quality whale gum may allow the soul master to exceed the maximum year limit when absorbing soul rings. Note, usable for the first 4 rings. Effects are unknown if taken in large quantities before martial soul awakening and require further testing. For the 4th soul ring, mental power must meet specific requirements before attempting to absorb a 10,000-year soul ring. The exact conditions depend on individual circumstances and require further study. After reading it, Guang Ling's mind went blank. If this hypothesis was true, the low-level soul master landscape could be completely revolutionized. He handed the paper to Qinghuan, who also skipped straight to the end. After reading it, even the usually composed Qinghuan stood up, looked at Han Li, then back at the paper, speechless. After a moment, they both sat back down, but neither touched their wine. They exchanged glances, silently urging the other to speak first. Finally, Guang Ling caved. My dear disciple, is this speculation accurate? Guang Ling crept closer to Han Li, looking sheepish, afraid of frightening his apprentice. Fake, for aphrodisiacs. Han Li replied flatly. So, it's real. Guang Ling straightened up and muttered, No, we need to inform the high priest immediately. This news can't just be shared with anyone. Master, have you forgotten that this is my discovery? Han Li pointed out quietly. Hearing this, Guang Ling looked a little embarrassed. He was so excited he'd almost forgotten that it was his apprentice's accomplishment. Ha, how could I? I just meant, of course it's up to you how to handle it. Guang Ling chuckled. Then, Li, what are you planning to do? Qinghuan asked. Han Li's expression softened. Just like he suspected, when things got real, he needed his uncle. His master was hopeless. Han Li straightened up and said seriously, Uncle, this is just a hypothesis. Of course, I'm more than 90% sure it's valid. We have to hand it over, but first, we need to test it. Second, I need to take care of a few things before we do. I promise not to harm the interests of the spirit hall. Qinghuan thought for a moment and said knowingly, So, you're planning to stockpile a batch of whale gum in advance, assuming the tests prove it works. Han Li nodded, confirming his suspicions. Guang Ling listened to the conversation, confused. Li, why stockpile it? Even if it's useful, you and Xiu'er wouldn't need that much. Han Li shot his master an annoyed look. Master, I want money. Lots of it. I like research, but research costs money, and while I'm not exactly broke right now, I can't keep asking you for cash. I'm planning for the future. Most of the whale gum I collect will still be sold to the spirit hall, but I'm going to charge a small handling fee. I'm not just giving this information away. Even if there's a reward after handing it in, what do you think I'll get? I don't care about fame. Soul bones are rare, and high-quality ones are even rarer. In the end, the reward will just be gold soul coins. It's better if I earn the money myself. After Han Li finished speaking, Guang Ling and Qingluan nodded. They didn't have any need of soul bones but only needed a couple of pieces. They didn't need gold soul coins at all, so they didn't give it any thought. Thinking about it now, it seems to be true. So you came here to talk about this? Guang Ling realized his apprentice's intention. Yeah, and to let master and uncle make some money. Your followers' families aren't exactly wealthy. If there's money to be made, everyone can benefit, right? Besides, I'm still young, and I need to collect whale gum through their channels. Han Li explained smoothly. Hearing this, Guang Ling and Qingluan exchanged glances, now eager as well. They couldn't just let others sacrifice for nothing. They'd trained hard for years, especially after Bibi Dong rose to power, and their followers' families were just getting by. Now there was an opportunity like this. Why not take it? Chapter 30, Acquisition Plan and Han Li who chose to take the blame. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, we're in agreement on your proposal. Let's test it out. Guang Ling and Qingluan exchanged a look and nodded decisively. It's best to use guys who are older and not super talented. Makes any accidents during the test easier to handle. Even though he was confident, Han Li still felt the need to remind them. So, I just take it straight? Guang Ling asked. Nope. You gotta melt it down with high heat first, then swallow it. After that, you can start practicing right away. Han Li clarified. Alright, then hang tight. No need to go hunting around. There are some suitable people right here in the mansion. I'll take care of it, Qingluan said, cutting in. Guang Ling seemed to understand, nodded in response, and watched Qingluan leave. Master, what's all this about? Han Li asked after Qingluan was gone. Oh, nothing. He's your uncle's brother's kid. We're not exactly close. Average talent, and he likes to trade on your uncle's name. He just showed up recently, so don't sweat it. If the experiment works, he still benefits, Guang Ling said with a dismissive curl of his lip, clearly not a fan of the younger man. Got it. Since it was family business, Han Li didn't pry. So, why haven't you gotten married, master? Had a kid, Han Li blurted out, figuring if his master got started now, maybe he could get a little junior into the god realm. Guang Ling's face tightened. How could he admit he was too busy training when he was younger? By the time he thought about it, most of his contemporaries were either married or pushing up daisies, and he just didn't feel it anymore. What do you know? A truly great archer can't have women on the brain. That's how you get divine archery skills. That's how I'm gonna be the first to break through to level 97. Listen to your master, Shaoli. That's the only way to reach the pinnacle of archery. Guang Ling insisted. Han Li glanced at his stubborn master. He didn't need Xian Daoliu's granddaughter from level 99 to prove him wrong. Looking out for singles, it's everyone's job. The two chatted for a while until Qingluan returned, looking pleased. Done? Guang Ling asked the instant he saw him. Yup. Just like Shaoli said, after downing a chunk of 1,000-year whale glue, the soul ring age his body can handle went up by about 400 years, less than 500, actually. But hey, his body's a wreck. Don't worry, I used soul power to block his taste and sight, just told him it was a rare treasure. Didn't let him know what he was eating. This is the last time I'm helping him out. Qingluan added, looking disgusted. If they weren't blood relatives, he'd happily beat the kid senseless. Consider this a charitable donation to science. Well, uncle is as thoughtful as ever. Seeing the normally gentle Qing Luan sound so harsh, Han Li just offered a dry reply. Since it works, what are we waiting for? We can do more testing later. Let's figure out how to acquire more, Guang Ling said, impatient. Okay. Han Li and Qing Luan nodded to each other and joined the discussion. Over an hour later, the three of them looked at the schedule in the center of the table and the contract in front of them, similar smiles on their faces. Qing Luan chuckled a few times, then quickly stopped himself. Not good. Hanging around these two is starting to rub off on me. Gotta maintain my image. But looking at the contract, how could he not be happy? After a bit more chatting, Han Li excused himself. It wasn't just a hit and run. Guang Ling firmly reminded him it was time to train and he shouldn't waste his time chasing soul coins. So, Han Li, who was hoping for a meal, had to obey and head back to his training. Because it was done under the radar, and the main collection point, Hanhai City, was far from Wuhuan City didn't pay it much attention. The plan went smoothly, and a large amount of whale glue was collected quickly. Han Li became the first soul master on the continent to use high-year whale glue training to boost his body. His strength improved as promised, but the experience wasn't exactly pleasant. The taste of whale glue melted at high temperatures was simply awful, a fishy stench that assaulted his nostrils, and he was forced to avoid seafood for a while. 6 months flew by. While training in the simulated environment, Han Li heard Xiao'er calling him. He slowly disengaged from his training, exhaled a breath of stale air, and stepped outside. What's up, Xiao'er? Han Li asked, smiling at the girl, now even more graceful. Xiao Li, Guang Ling Douluo and Qing Luan Douluo sent someone to tell you to come to the mansion. They said they need to talk to you about something. Xiao'er said, blushing a little, as she looked at Han Li, who had also grown taller, standing over 5 feet now and a little taller than she was. Okay. Then wait for me at home, Xiao'er. We'll have dinner together when I get back. Han Li said as he walked by, then quickly left before Xiao'er could answer. Okay, Xiao'er said softly, only after Han Li had gone, as if answering the question just now. At the Guang Ling mansion, Han Li had barely crossed the threshold when he heard his master's excited voice. Xiao Li, get over here. We're about to make a killing. Rounding the screen, Han Li saw Guang Ling grinning ear to ear. Congrats, master. If you've got too much, you can share a little more with me. I wouldn't mind, Han Li said, smiling. Share. No problem. After I cash in, I'll give you 1,000,000 gold soul coins, Guang Ling Douluo declared generously. Sounds like you really are about to make a fortune, master. Han Li added, still smiling, as he sat down at the table. You little rascal. You make it sound like I was stingy before, Guang Ling said, chuckling, but clearly in a good mood. When Qing Luan saw Han Li sit, he handed him a ledger and smiled, motioning for him to take a look. Han Li put it down on the table without reading it. He looked at the two elders. I don't need to look. I'll leave the rest to you two. I'll just wait for my cut. Okay, now we gotta get ready to report all this. Well, after sitting on it for 6 months, it's about time, Guang Ling said, his smile fading as he turned serious. Master, just tell the truth when you speak to the high priest. Just say it was my idea. Don't try to protect me. Han Li raised his hand to cut Guang Ling off before he could say anything. He added seriously, you guys are different than me, don't worry about how it'll affect me. I'm still young. They can only yell at me a few times. If it was you two, well, that's different and it would hurt my feelings. We agreed on this already. I don't want to change my mind now. Guang Ling and Qing Luan exchanged glances, their expressions shifting, unsure of what they were feeling. Was their apprentice actually protecting them? Seeing their awkward looks, Han Li shook his head and said reassuringly. Master, uncle, don't think you're letting me down. If you really feel that way, I won't dare come to you if something happens in the future. After all, it's me dragging you into this. You both know the great high priest. He doesn't have any issues with these little schemes of mine. By putting me out front, he'll understand better. Gotta look out for the younger generation, right? Guang Ling and Qin Luan considered his words and thought of Qian Daoliu's past behavior, and finally nodded in agreement. Although they agreed to Han Li's plan from the start, they had privately decided that they were ready to take it back. They had also profited, and they couldn't shamefully drag out their apprentice and junior to speak for them. But they hadn't expected Han Li to catch on and volunteer to take the fall. It actually made them feel cared for. However, this was what Han Li had planned all along. After a year of being around them, he could clearly feel the affection his master and uncle had for him, so he naturally chose to return the favor. Moreover, he wasn't acting rashly. He had already combined it with what he remembered and confirmed Qian Daoliu's character. He's a man of honor, okay to bully others. Besides, he wasn't going overboard, and he wasn't harming anyone's interests. He was using his research results to gain benefits within an appropriate scope. No one could tell him he was wrong, right? Thanks to Monk31 for writing Zhong Nian Kuang and the two big guys for their monthly support. Thank you very much. Please read the new book that I would like to ask readers to please use your little hands and turn to the end. It is very important to follow up during the new book period. Thank you very much. Free recommendation votes are also available. Thank you from the author.